The bass doesn't just play in this club. It lives in the floorboards. It crawls up your shins, rattles your rib cage, and settles somewhere in the marrow of your bones. Manhattan, early 90s. The air is a humid, suffocating soup of spilled Dom Perignon, stale Marlboro smoke, and the desperate sweat of people trying entirely too hard to be seen. Strobe lights slice the darkness into jagged, freeze-frame photographs, capturing 1,000 different desperate vices in a single second. In one flash, a supermodel throws her head back in breathless laughter, tendons straining in her neck. In the next, a Wall Street broker spills white powder on a crushed velvet cushion, his eyes wide and vacant. Through this electric, writhing chaos walks a man who just wants to disappear into the shadows. He moves differently than the rest of the room. There is no frantic energy, no swaggering desperation to catch a stray eye, no peacocking for the cameras that aren't there. He's relatively short, bundled in a heavy, black leather jacket that squeaks faintly against the crush of passing bodies. He keeps his chin tucked, eyes hooded, navigating the sticky floor with the quiet, rolling grace of an apex predator crossing dry leaves. He just finished washing his hands in the restroom. He just wants to get back to his shadowed booth, sip his drink, and pretend for 3 consecutive minutes that the entire world isn't waiting to tear a piece out of him. He is the heavyweight champion of the world, but tonight, in the blinding dark, he's just a guy trying to breathe. Upstairs, at the velvet rope guarding the VIP sanctuary, the atmospheric pressure changes. The shift just turned over. Standing at the lip of the stairs is a mountain of meat and misplaced confidence. 6'4", 260 pounds of former college football muscle, crammed into a black security polo that's a full size too small. The dark fabric stretches violently across his chest, straining at the seams with every heavy, aggressive breath. His jaw is locked, grinding on nothing but his own inflated self-worth. He radiates that specific, sour scent of cheap aerosol deodorant and raw, untested ego. He doesn't just watch the crowd, he stalks it from his static post. He is a hammer desperately looking for a nail. He thinks the black shirt is a crown. He thinks sheer mass equals absolute sovereignty. The strobe flashes, white light, pitch black, white light. The bouncer spots a figure ascending the carpeted steps, short, unaccompanied, no entourage parting the sea, no laminated VIP pass hanging from a thick gold chain, just a guy in a leather jacket, looking at the floor, stepping into restricted territory like he owns the very oxygen in the room.
The bouncer shifts his massive weight. His heavy steel-toed work boots grind fiercely into the carpet. He squares his broad shoulders, completely blocking the narrow corridor. He doesn't see the way the other, older security guards in the periphery have suddenly gone completely rigid, their hands dropping from their radios. He doesn't notice the floor manager, 20 feet away, suddenly freezing in his tracks, the blood draining instantly from his face to leave a mask of pure terror. All the bouncer sees is an opportunity to rule. The man in the leather jacket takes the final step onto the VIP landing. He doesn't break stride. He doesn't look up. The bouncer lunges. It isn't a polite tap. It isn't a raised hand to signal a routine stop. It is a physical assertion of absolute, unadulterated dominance. A heavy, meaty hand fingers thick as steel cables, shoots out through the smoke-filled air like a battering ram. Smack! The sound of the bouncer's thick palms striking the heavy leather jacket is sharp, cutting straight through the thumping bass line of the relentless house music. Thick, calloused fingers dig viciously into the shorter man's right shoulder, bunching the thick hide of the jacket, violently squeezing the dense muscle underneath. The bouncer leans in hard, his massive, imposing shadow completely swallowing the smaller man. "Where you think you're going?" The bouncer's voice is a gravelly bark, spit flying from his lips, catching the neon light in a disgusting spray. "VIPs for VIP only. You got a pass?" Time stops. The strobe light flashes again, but the frantic energy of the club seems to flatline. The music is still pounding, the glasses are still clinking, the crowd is still a writhing mass of limbs below them. But right here, on this 2-square-foot patch of carpet, the air pressure drops to absolute zero. The man in the leather jacket freezes. Every single muscle in his body halts in mid-motion. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't recoil. The stillness is unnatural. It is the terrifying, dead silent stillness of a detonator waiting for a fatal spark. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the man turns his head. The heavy leather of his jacket creaks in quiet, ominous protest against the bouncer's crushing grip. The strobe flashes across his face. Dark, heavy-lidded eyes lock onto the bouncer. There's no anger in them. There's no fear. There's only a vast, empty, terrifying calm. It is a look forged in the concrete crucible of Brownsville. It is a look that understands the brutal mathematics of street violence down to the absolute decimal point. The bouncer's thick fingers are still clamped down hard, dirty nails biting into the leather. He thinks he has the upper hand. He thinks he has stopped a nobody.
The giant thinks he just pinned a stray animal. He has no idea his thick fingers are currently wrapped around the pin of a live grenade. Cheap street-level instinct translates that dead silence into fear. The giant's ego swells, toxic and hot in his chest, feeding on a submission that simply isn't there. He lunges deeper into the smaller man's personal space. His heavy breath, thick with the chemical burn of stale peppermint gum, completely swallows whatever oxygen remains on this square foot of carpet. He digs his fingers deeper into the leather. He wants to feel the bones snap. He wants the flinch. "I asked you a question, Shorty." The bass from the speakers below threatens to drown him out, but he projects from his diaphragm, a booming, ugly sound meant to shatter eardrums and willpower alike. "You deaf? Turn around and walk back down those stairs before I bounce your skull off every single step." The strobe light hits him again. Flash. The bouncer's face is contorted, teeth bared, eyes wide with the intoxicating high of cheap, unearned authority. Flash. The man in the jacket remains completely, utterly motionless. All around him, the strobe lights continue their frantic, epileptic assault. The crowd keeps writhing and screaming in a blur of endless, chaotic motion, completely oblivious to the explosive payload that was just triggered. But right here, on this single square foot of carpet, the atmosphere instantly thickens into wet cement. A single drop of sweat on the giant's furrowed brow seems to detach, hanging perfectly suspended in the freezing, dead silent air. Mike doesn't think. His body runs on the most brutal survival instinct of Brownsville. His heart rate doesn't spike. It plummets straight to freezing. The surrounding music dies. There is only the deafening sound of blood pumping beneath the bouncer's wrist. The heavy, sweaty hand on his right shoulder is a physical trespass that demands immediate, overwhelming retribution. The urge to pivot, drop his center of gravity, and uncoil a right hook that would separate this giant's jaw from his skull is a living, breathing thing inside him. It begs to be let off the leash. 20 feet away, across the velvet ropes, the air is shattering. The veteran security guards have seen the profile in the strobe light. They recognize the leather jacket. They see the rookie bouncer's massive hand resting on the shoulder of the man the entire country wouldn't dare look in the eye.
A floor manager named Tony is already moving, his expensive dress shoes slipping dangerously on spilled vodka, his mouth ripped open in a silent scream that is entirely swallowed by the pounding music. He is running through wet cement. 20 feet is an ocean. 3 seconds is an eternity. They all know the horrific violence that is about to erupt. They are bracing for the spray of hot blood, the shattered teeth raining on the carpet, the devastating headlines that will destroy them all by morning. The bouncer smirks, coiling his muscles, ready to physically shove this defiant nobody backward down the steep stairs. Then, the nobody moves. It isn't fast. It isn't a jerky, panicked reaction born of adrenaline. It is smooth, lazy, and terrifyingly casual. Mike's left hand rises from his side. It drifts up through the smoke-choked air, looking almost bored, and gently wraps the bouncer's thick wrist, the exact same wrist attached to the hand currently gripping his shoulder. The bouncer feels the touch. It doesn't feel like a threat. He sneers, preparing to swat the smaller man's hand away like a persistent, annoying fly. He flexes his massive bicep and pulls his arm back to deliver the violent shove. Nothing happens. His arm doesn't move. It doesn't budge a single solitary millimeter. The bouncer frowns. A sharp, icy prickle of sheer confusion pierces through his alcohol and sweat-fueled ego. He plants his heavy boots firmly into the carpet, drops his entire weight, and violently yanks his arm backward, putting all 260 pounds of his frame into the aggressive motion. The arm remains suspended in midair, bolted to the space between them. Mike's fingers are not just holding the wrist, they have become part of it. The grip feels like industrial machinery, a pneumatic clamp forged in hardened steel and locked down with unrelenting hydraulic pressure. The bouncer's breath hitches violently in his throat. The peppermint gum tastes like burning ash. The violent, pulsing heat of his own confidence evaporates instantly into a sudden, freezing vacuum of absolute, unadulterated terror. He looks down at the hand effortlessly holding him. Then he looks up into Mike's eyes. The silence in those dark eyes has changed. It isn't submission, it is a countdown. And when the countdown hits 0, the champion moves again. It isn't a flurry of motion. It is a singular, fluid redirection of kinetic energy, engineered in the darkest, bloodiest gyms of Brooklyn. Mike pivots his hips, dropping his center of gravity by a fraction of an inch, and torques his body. He pulls the giant's trapped arm down and forward in a violent, mathematically perfect arc. Gravity violently betrays the giant. 260 pounds of pure, hostile muscle is violently uprooted from the earth by a millimeter-perfect shift of weight. His massive frame is hijacked, sent hurtling forward in a cruel, irresistible, and mathematically devastating plunge. His balance shatters completely into a million unrecoverable pieces. He stumbles, folding clumsily at the waist, plummeting from his towering height until his wide, terrified eyes are perfectly level with Mike's. Mike's right hand is already waiting. It isn't a clenched fist. It isn't a weapon forged to shatter orbitals and cave in ribs. It is an open palm. It lands completely flat, dead center against the bouncer's straining sternum, and Mike pushes. It isn't a strike. It is a dismissal. It is firm, definitive, and absolutely final. Momentum violently hijacks the giant's body. He scrambles backwards, his heavy work boots desperately clawing at the slick carpet, but he is no longer the author of his own movements. 3 steps back. 4. Crash! His broad shoulders slam against the paneled wall with a hollow, concussive thud. The impact is so solid, it rattles the expensive framed photographs in their glass casings. He stands there, pinned by his own phantom momentum, massive chest heaving, eyes the size of saucer plates. The pounding bass of the club hasn't skipped a single beat. The strobe lights haven't stopped bleeding blinding white across the dark, but the entire VIP section is turned into a sprawling graveyard. Every supermodel, every rapper, every Wall Street hustler is frozen perfectly in place. They just watched a titan get manhandled like a misbehaving toddler, and the guy in the leather jacket didn't even blink. Tony, the floor manager, finally breaks through the invisible barrier. His face is the color of wet chalk. He doesn't look at his bleeding-edge security guard. He looks straight at the man who just effortlessly rewrote the laws of physics. "Mr. Tyson," Tony breathes, the words trembling with pure, unadulterated panic. "This is new staff. He didn't recognize you. This will never happen again. I apologize." The giant's pupils dilate, sliding wildly in their sockets. Every drop of blood violently evacuates his face, leaving behind a sickening ash-white mask under the relentless strobe lights. His heart stutters, misfiring against his ribs as his brain finally processes the silhouette. He just grabbed the collar of the apocalypse. He just tried to bully a living, breathing nightmare named Mike Tyson. He chokes on a lungful of stale smoke, his massive chest utterly paralyzed in a sudden, suffocating panic. The giant simply stops functioning. He stands pinned against the wall, a hollow shell of his former ego, trembling violently as he waits for the inevitable execution. He waits for the lights to go out forever. Tony whirls on his employee, his voice slicing through the heavy air like a scalpel. "Apologize, now." The bouncer peels himself off the wall, trying desperately to scrape together some fragmented scrap of dignity. It's completely gone. His voice, previously a booming, arrogant bark, is now a dry, rattling whisper. "I'm sorry, Mr. Tyson. I didn't know who you were. I was just doing my job." Mike steps closer. His voice is razor thin, just loud enough for the giant to hear. "You're still breathing because I let you. Don't make me change my mind." The bouncer has no response. He just stares at the floor, a broken monolith. Tony doesn't hesitate. "You, downstairs office, now. We'll talk about your future here." The bouncer doesn't argue. He lowers his heavy head, tucks his chin, and takes the long, humiliating walk past the man he tried to bully, vanishing forever into the dark stairwell, a ghost of his own making. Mike declines Tony's frantic, sweating offers of comped bottles. He walks calmly back to his booth, sliding into the dark leather seat. His friend stares at him, letting out a nervous, breathless laugh. He didn't even hit him. Didn't need to. Mike's cold, dead eyes remain fixed entirely on the ice melting in his glass. The pounding house music surges back through the floorboards. The crowd, momentarily stunned, resumes its frantic, sweaty rhythm under the relentless strobe lights. Deep in the shadowed corner of the VIP section, the heavyweight champion of the world takes a slow sip of his drink. Perfectly, completely invisible.